Hey everyone, this is Paul Mayer with ToolMetrix. Today I get to take a look at the brand new Revo 1216 mid-size lathe offering from Laguna. This gives you 12 inches of bowl capacity, or 6 inches between the center of the spindle and the lathe bed, and about 16 inches of spindle capacity. So if you're turning pepper mills or candle holders or things like that, you have about 16 inches to work with. It also has an optional bed extension, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but that extends you out 10 more inches, giving you up to 26 inches of spindle capacity. And I think more interestingly, and I'll spoiler alert here, I'll tell you about my favorite feature on the lathe, is you can take this bed extension and mount it over on the other side of the lathe, dropping it down 2 inches. And this gives you the ability to do outboard turning, which is at least unusual, if not unique, in a mid-sized lathe. I've never seen it. And I love outboard turning, and that's mostly what I do when I'm turning bowls, is arrange a lathe to be turning outboard. I like it because it's more ergonomic. You can square up with the bowl and scoop out the inside of that bowl much more easily, as opposed to a standard position where you're kind of reaching around and it's just not as ergonomic. So I really like that. That drops down 2 inches, giving you 8 inches between the center of the spindle and the bed extension for up to 16 inches. Now I've got a platter here that I turned on this lathe. This is a 15 or so inch platter, maybe 15 and a half inch platter that I turned on here, outboard style, and it really impressed me on how it dealt with turning such a large piece on this lathe. Now, part of the reason that it's able to turn a large piece like that is it's got enough power, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but it also just has enough heft. This lathe, with all the accessories and options that it has here, weighs in at over 200 pounds, and that's a beefy mid-size lathe. It compares really favorably out there, so you'll like that capability a lot. Now this, just for example, is an 11-inch bowl, so this could be turned standard inboard. 11-inch bowl, so that's still a good sized bowl, but going outboard, giving you that additional capacity, I think is a real game changer for this machine. So I'm just going to walk you through kind of feature by feature. Feel free to ask questions down below and I'll answer whatever I can. The 1216 is powered by a smooth running 1 horsepower motor that is tucked directly under the lathe bed. It uses a digital technology known as pulse width modulation, or PWM, to control the variable speed. This is noteworthy because it is simply a better way to control the speed of an electric motor, delivering a smoother transition and more complete range of power compared to traditional analog means of delivering variable speed. Now, as a user, this will allow me to maintain a high torque and smooth operation at very low speeds for rounding out a bowl blank, as well as top end speeds for smoothing out a small spindle. Anyone who's ever done any turning on a traditional lathe without electronic variable speed control will love the flexibility that you get with true EVS, allowing you to dial into exactly the right speed for any operation. Power delivery is further controlled through a series of pulleys with 3 power ranges. The low end provides maximum torque for bowl turning and provides RPMs from 50 to 525. This 1-to-3 gear ratio is great for maximizing the torque that can be achieved on a mid-sized lathe. I found it surprisingly capable at rounding a bowl blank when set in that range. From there you can step up to 1750 RPM and then to a screaming 3500 RPM at the top end of the range. The belt changing mechanism is very clever, utilizing a cam mechanism that allows for one-handed belt changes. Just rotate the cam 90 degrees, move the belt to the desired location, and pop the handle back in place. Really couldn't be any easier than that. Now here's something else that is neat. If you want a bit more leverage for changing belts, the faceplate wrench can be used as a handy extension, making it effortless to make the adjustment. The bed is made of high quality cast iron. It's heavy duty and dead flat and provides a great surface for a banjo to engage. The banjo is also beefy for a mid-sized lathe. It slides easily and locks down solidly and effortlessly. Just like on Laguna's larger lathes, the 1216 uses a full 1-inch post. The post locking mechanism grabs the post evenly by applying pressure around the full circumference of the post rather than pressing a screw tip up against the post. This gives you a gorilla grip onto the tool rest, and it also supports a gouge solidly even under heavy turning pressure. The tool rest features a high-end 6mm tip made of solid hardened tool steel, which is really a rare find on a stock tool rest in this class. It can take some punishment without getting dinged up. The 1-inch post also allows you to use a good variety of aftermarket tool rests for additional capacity, or curved rests that some bowl turners like to use for bowl turning, particularly on larger bowls. The 1216 has a control panel positioned conveniently on the headstock. It has an anodized aluminum plate, large user-friendly buttons and knobs for speed and directional control, and the large clear RPM display indicates the machine's actual rotation speed while it's in operation. It's a nice benefit to have the speed dial on the same panel as the RPM indicator, so you can get real-time feedback as you make speed adjustments. The reverse capability is great for sanding when you're on normal turning operations, and it's also the default that enables the outboard turning capability, so that's a nice plus. The cast iron tailstock is beefier than you might expect on a mid-size lathe. It glides nicely across the lathe bed and locks down easily and securely with the long, cushy handle. The quill has a travel of 2.5 inches, which is nice when you're using it for drilling operations like you might for a pepper mill or lidded boxes. The live center is solid and spins freely and was aligned perfectly with the spindle center on this unit. The 1216 also has a nice indexing feature with 24 locking locations on 15-degree increments, which is useful if you want to rotate the workpiece in precise increments while the lathe is powered off. This is popular for carving, routing, and piercing operations. Using the indexing pin is quite easy. Just rotate clockwise to engage and counterclockwise to release. Now, anytime I'm looking at a new tool in my shop, I try to measure and quantify as much about that tool as I possibly can so that I can get an objective assessment. Here are a few observations that I've made about the 1216. The bed is dead flat to 15 1/1000ths of an inch. Now that is very flat, and the big reason why the banjo and tailstock slide so nicely. The lathe only draws 5 amps when it's running at full speed, so you can run this on nearly any circuit. I measured runout at the spindle of less than 1 1/1000ths of an inch. That means it's nearly impossible to actually detect any runout even with a good quality dial indicator. That's a huge advantage for a lathe because it means you can produce better turn surfaces. Vibration is virtually non-existent on this machine. I gave it a nickel test and it passed that so easily I decided to actually try a dime test. So I put a dime on its edge and then turn the machine from 0 to 3,500 RPM and then back down. And the dime remained standing and showed no sign of wanting to fall. I've never seen this actually work on a power tool before, so I was very impressed. The 1216 comes nicely equipped as standard, but I also have a few options here that are worth pointing out. First of all, onboard lighting. This is one of those things where I never really thought I needed auxiliary lighting for turning, but now that I've experienced it, there's no going back. These are high quality lights with 3 adjustable joints so you can position the light wherever you want it. It mounts conveniently onto the headstock and it works well for bowl or spindle turning, whether turning inboard or outboard. Now, I already talked a little bit about the bed extension. Now, this extends the spindle capacity by 10 inches and the bowl turning capacity by 4 inches. In addition to the cast iron bed, you also get the articulating knuckle and locking mechanism with this, and that is what's going to give you the additional reach to handle the added capacity that you have when you're doing outboard turning. The articulating knuckle is a durable cast iron piece, heavy duty, that withstands the punishment of turning large items on the outboard side. I would strongly suggest getting this whether you're into bowl or spindle turning, as it's really an economical way to amp up the capabilities of this lathe quite a bit. The optional stand for the 1216 has a lot going for it. First, it uses heavy gauge steel, so it's solid and stable. Also, it has the option to adjust the height, which is appropriate for turning. You can dial in exactly the height that you're looking for. Now, this lathe uses the same wheel kit as is used on the Laguna bandsaws, both the 1412 and the 14BX series. This provides 3 points of contact, which gives you a nice tight turning radius and the ease of operation to raise and lower the machine. This makes it very easy to roll it up against the wall when you're not using it. All right, that about wraps up my look at the Laguna Revo 1216 midsize lathe. I think if I was to sum it up, I think there are three things that really stood out to me. First, and if you were paying attention, you probably would have guessed what really stood out for me. My number one thing was the outboard turning capability. I think that's really cool. It's a game changer for this class of machine. Secondly, I like the power delivery system, the variable speed control using the pulse width modulation approach. I think that's a surprise to me for a product in this class. Really a nice way to manage that power capability. And then thirdly is just the overall heft of the machine. I feel that for a machine in this class to weigh in at over 200 pounds and have that kind of burliness about it really sets it apart and brings that, that stability that you really long for when you're turning, especially larger items, especially bowls or a platter of this size. So a lot of neat capabilities packed into a pretty small package overall. Hopefully I've addressed your questions up front, but if you have any questions remaining, please feel free to ask them down below. I'll do my best to address whatever I can. Also, I hope you'll subscribe to the ToolMetrix channel, where I'll continue to bring you more DIY, woodworking, wood turning, and tool videos over time. Thanks so much for watching.